So get a good look at this piece. Here we actually have a fragment that has some residual paint on it. So we've been looking at a lot of completely washed, clean sculptures. Here we actually have some trace paint on it. And that just reminds me, using that word washed, different reasons for how the paint may have disappeared over time. And what are some possible explanations for why most classical sculpture is unpainted to our eyes? Exposure to weather, right? Exposure to moisture, the water when it's buried in the ground, yeah? Or light exposure, natural light, sunlight is a big thing, especially ultraviolet light. This is even in the Art Institute, where we're very careful to put ultraviolet filters on our lights, ultraviolet filters on our windows, because ultraviolet is particularly damaging to pigment. But also a lot of the disappearance of color has happened in more recent times. Sometimes the best thing you can do to an ancient sculpture is to leave it in the ground. And as soon as you take it out of the ground, what little bit of color it might have remaining on it will quickly fade away from light exposure, from air exposure, from accidentally, maybe a little too deliberate cleanings by early collectors. This piece is interesting, I don't know, because this is a bit of a temple fragment. It might have been on a funerary monument, but more so in a religious temple context. Look at the interesting figure on his knees there. You can see the lovely reddish color of the flesh tones and the tall figure, headless tall male figure to the left. This flesh tone. So one thing that paint was used for is to differentiate roles, various roles. So, gender roles. This is why often on Greek ceramics, oftentimes the women might have a lighter colored appearance, whereas the men who would toil and labor out in the fields would get the heavy tan. So women as well as aristocratic men who don't have to go outside might have a lighter colored flesh tone. Gods might have also lovely whiteness to their skin, or sometimes gold. And in other cultures, color is used to differentiate deities in an entirely different manner. The Egyptian God Osiris sometimes is seen with skin that is black, sometimes also skin that's green. Those are two popular colors for the skin of Osiris. Any guesses why? So, underworld, what about that? What do we often associate black as being a color of? Mourning, yeah, or in Osiris, the god of the dead. But at the same time, the funny thing is, in the Egyptian context, black was a color of life. And you think black, the color of life, that's unusual. Well, before they built the big dam in the 1960s, every year the Nile would flood. And it would leave this rich deposits of soil after the floodwaters receded. And this black, rich, fertile soil, we plant our crops in that soil. And then, so from this lush, fertile blackness comes all of the green plant life. So green, also another color of life. And Osiris, as much as he's the god of the dead, he's also the god of life. Because death is just a gateway to a new life, right? So anyway, the tangent, but that's a couple ideas behind how color is used to differentiate and distinguish roles of different deities, roles of people in society. Of course, ornamentation. We find purple especially as a very regal color of the Roman emperors. Here we have these lovely blue wings of this figure. Wings, okay. Who is this fella on his knees here if he has wings? And look at those legs. What's up with his legs? They turn into these like snake-like tendrils. So it's a very angelic-looking figure, right? And then these tall, noble, regal figures. This is a representation of, I think I mentioned earlier, this battle between the Olympian gods and the giants. And one exceptionally well-known representation of that you can find today in Berlin is this great altar of Zeus, which was once at the city of Pergamon, which is in Turkey. So, like Knidos, we mentioned earlier, so many wonderful ancient Greek sites actually are on the western coast of Turkey. I mean, think of Ephesus and many other places. This was a thriving colony in the Greek world, the western coast of Turkey. And so this magnificent, colossal representation of the battle of the gods and the giants. You see similarly the snake tendrils you see on this giant fallen at his knees, and otherwise exceptionally powerful figure, the giant, so could certainly crush any mortal, but under the hands of the grasp of the goddess Athena, even the poor giant suffers on his knees. So, and then the beautiful wings. And down here, down below, you see the Gaia, Mother Earth, the mother of the giants, and she's beseeching Athena, please, don't hurt my child, have mercy. We have about 5 minutes left, and I'll leave you over in China because polychromy isn't just happening in the Greco-Roman world. Also, so many of these stoic-looking figures of the Buddhist and Hindu traditions were once vividly, brightly painted as well. So we're gonna have a look at one example of just reinforcing how the way we see it in the museum might not be reflective of how it originally appeared.